Hello, everyone, and welcome to City Parks Alliance webinar on applying to host a park study tour. The purpose of today's webinar is to let you know what a park study tour is and why you might want to host one, how you can apply to host a tour in your city, and what the requirements and expectations are for host cities. My name is Karen Ernst. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at City Parks Alliance, and I manage all of City Parks Alliance Park Exchange programs, which includes a suite of offerings ranging from in-person to online experiences for sharing innovative practices to strengthen parks and the partnerships that sustain them. As part of our Park Exchange program, we've been leading park study tours in cities around the country since 2011 to highlight innovative park systems, creative public space design, and effective partnerships. We have a great turnout on today's session, and in order to make sure we can respond to everyone as questions or problems arise, here are some tips. In order to ask a question, please click the text box underneath the question toolbar on your GoToWebinar control panel, type the question in the box, and click Send. Feel free to send in questions throughout the presentations. Just know we will be holding them until the end. If you experience a technical problem during the presentation, please type it in the question box and send it to us. If you miss something, don't worry. Download links to the presentation, recording, and copies of documents referenced during today's webinar will be emailed to all registrants. Park study tours, what is a park study tour? Park study tours are 2.5-day events developed in partnership with host cities, which are designed to highlight the people, places, and partnerships that make their park systems special and that contribute to vibrant, healthy, and equitable communities. During the park study tour, participants from around the country visit local parks, hear from park leaders and their partners, and learn how these special places are designed, programmed, and managed. Tour activities can include walking tours, bike tours, water tours, and motor coach tours. Tour sites might include neighborhood parks, destination parks, trails and greenways, public plazas, playgrounds, recreation centers, community gardens, and neighborhood public spaces, whether they're a part of the city's official park system or developed and managed by nonprofit or private sector partners. The local host city works with City Parks Alliance to develop learning objectives for the tour, to identify tour sites, and to create a tour schedule that showcases their parks and provides learning opportunities for attendees. Attendance for park study tours is capped at 35 in order to encourage networking, relationship building, and shared learning among participants and tour hosts. Attendees represent public, nonprofit, and private sector park professionals from around the country. In past years, park study tours have been hosted in Chicago, Los Angeles, Denver, Toronto, and Cleveland. So why host a park study tour? Former host cities have identified a long list of benefits from having hosted. Some of the reasons to host a tour that they shared include showcasing your city's successes while getting practical, on-the-ground feedback from leaders in other cities about common challenges and opportunities, leveraging the presence of the park study tour to showcase your work to other key stakeholders and leaders in your city, strengthening relationships among public, nonprofit, community-based, and institutional partners in your city, and providing an excellent team building opportunity for your organization's staff as they participate and share their work alongside park study tour participants. And finally, to build the connections with peers around the country that will serve you for years to come. City Parks Alliance staff work closely with the local host team to plan and implement the tour. I wanted to give you an idea of the host team's responsibilities in the process so you know what would be required of your team if you decided to host. The local host team needs to identify a lead organization and staff person and a small local planning team. Work with the City Parks Alliance to develop tour themes and learning objectives. Identify potential tour sites. Provide information and images for marketing materials. Identify local speakers and tour leaders. help secure local sponsors and in-kind donations, suggest and help secure venues for tour events, and provide local logistical support. The City Parks Alliance will lead and facilitate the planning process with a local host team and team leader. We support local fundraising with philanthropic, corporate, and public sector funders. We guide the development of themes, learning objectives, and tour content. We develop the tour schedule, and we manage all tour logistics, including hotels, transportation, rentals, venues, and restaurants, and managing all event contracts. We develop all the marketing materials and manage the national tour publicity, and we provide support to local tour publicity. And finally, we manage registration and all logistics for the participants. CPA has a number of ways we cover funding for the tour. One is we have participant fees that we charge. We also do national fundraising, and then our local host has to do some local fundraising. The host contribution is $10,000. $5,000 of that needs to be in cash, and the remaining $5,000 can be either in cash or in-kind donations to cover event costs, such as transportation, rentals, catering, or meeting space. The local host team is given 5 complimentary spots in the park tour activities, receptions, and meals. Applications to host a park study tour are due on May 31st. Interested cities need to fill out the online application form, which you can find at cityparksalliance.org/parktour. A member of your local host team must be a member of City Parks Alliance in order to apply to host. The application to host form includes the following components: a city statement, which says why you want to host a park study tour and how would hosting a park tour add value to you, to your work and your partner's ongoing efforts. Identify some potential tour themes that highlight what's unique or special about your parks and or significant successes in park design, development, programming, or partnerships. And you need to identify potential sites of up to 7 that tell a piece of your city's park and recreation story with just a few sentences describing each. And that's just to give us a sense of what you would want to showcase in your park during the park study tour. You need to identify a local host team, which includes up to 5 representatives from the public, nonprofit, and or private sectors, and identify a team leader and a lead organization. And then finally, you'll need a letter of commitment by the lead organization to fundraise for the required amount with a list of potential sources and any early pledges. And you need to express an interest of whether you would prefer to host a winter study tour, which would be in February, or a summer study tour, which would be sometime in the summer of 2020. Applications are due May 31st. We will be conducting interviews with the host teams in mid-June, and then we'll be selecting the cities on June 28th. And we're going to be announcing the cities for the park study tours at Greater and Greener this summer in July. The winter tour for 2020 would likely be in February, and the summer tour would likely be in June. All right, so if you have any questions, you can send them in now. Somebody asked if this presentation will be emailed afterwards. Yes, we will be sending the presentation and the slides afterwards, as well as a link to the online form and a link to the application. All right, somebody had logistical questions and wanted to know how we handle park tour logistics. We get suggestions from the host cities on tour companies to work with, restaurants that you might want to host events in, bicycle rental places where you might want to rent from, and then we follow up with all of those and do all the logistical planning, but we work with you to identify the most appropriate groups and businesses to work with. We also got a question about the summer tour likely being in June 2020. is that a change to the application which says it might be in June or early September. It can be anywhere from June to early September. And clarification, somebody asked a question to clarify the host contribution. So they want a little more information on that. So basically we have a $10,000 budget that needs to be covered locally, and that we need at least $5,000 of that to cover a wide range of costs. $5,000 of the 10 can come in through in-kind donations that will offset direct costs. So for example, if you got a boat rental place to rent canoes, and that direct cost, and they give that for free, then that reduces a direct cost, and we consider that an in-kind donation. If you get a bicycle tour company to offer us bicycles at a reduced cost, then that reduces the overall cost of the tour, and that becomes part of your in-kind donation. If you get a catering company to provide food for one of the receptions or events, that also would become considered an in-kind donation. So we need up to $5,000 worth of in-kind contributions to complete the match. Or you can give all of the contribution in cash as a $10,000 match for the program. The tour is 2.5 days long, and it starts on a Thursday evening where people come in for an opening reception with the host team. And then we tour all day Friday, and then tour half the day on Saturday. There was another question about a link to a downloadable and printable application. There is a link to the downloadable application, but you need to actually fill the form out online. So you can download the Park Study Tour application to host guidelines from our website at cityparksalliance.bsky.social/park tour, and then from there you can also link to the online form where you can fill out the application. So somebody asked about examples of park study tours we've done in the past. So we just did one this past fall. It was in September in Cleveland, and we did a bike tour in the morning on Friday. That went from the lakefront through the neighborhoods, and then we spent the afternoon touring some neighborhood park sites and a neighborhood recreation center. And that evening we hosted a reception and dinner, and then the next morning we did a series of tours going to, this one was by motor coach on Saturday, and we went to a nature preserve in the middle of the city that was created from an infill site, and we toured some of the historic parks in the afternoon, and then did downtown parks later in the day. We've also done park study tours in Toronto, Chicago, New York, and Denver. There is a question about, is there a list of all in-kind contributions that will be accepted as part of the match? We don't have that list, but we can get that to you. It has to be food, it has to be meals, or transportation or rentals, basically. But if you need more specifics than that, we can get that to you. To some degree, it depends on how we design the tour with you, whether or not what would be contributed. It has to offset a direct cost of the actual tour. So another question was, is the Thursday evening through Saturday time frame fixed? That's the way we've always done them in the past, and it seems to work really well that way. We could discuss other options, but we found that it works very well for people to be able to come in on a Thursday afternoon and then be able to leave Saturday evening. So what are some examples of learning objectives from other park study tours? In Cleveland, one of the learning objectives was to, I'm trying to remember how we phrased it. It was basically looking at how cities are using reinvigorating vacant lots through neighborhood partnerships. and creating kind of vibrant neighborhood spaces through grassroots partnerships and community partnerships. So the learning objectives can be around something that you do particularly well in your city. Maybe it's around riverfront redevelopment, or it could be around neighborhood park activation. It could be around recreational partnerships. It could be around kind of large downtown park redevelopment. So whatever you've done particularly well, or what your partners are working particularly well on in your city, we could develop learning objectives around. They just need to be something that is replicable, relevant for other cities. Another question, is there any data or information on past tours to reference or to look at? That's a good question. I'm trying to think of what we have on our website. I don't think we have images from our past park study tours. What we can do is in our follow-up email, we will share some of the brochures from past park study tours. We have marketing brochures for them. So we'll include with that email, the follow-up email to this, that information. The other thing we can include is the learning objectives from the Cleveland Park Study Tour, so that you can get a sense of how they developed their learning objectives and then how they tied those learning objectives to the sites that they visited. I'm looking through the questions right now to see if we've answered them all. All right, it looks like we've answered all the questions. If you have additional questions, you can send them to me at cernst@cityparksalliance.org. All right, so thank you for joining the webinar today. Our next webinar is on funding parks through institutional health partnerships, and that will take place on Wednesday, May 15th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. To register for this webinar, which is free and exclusive to members, go to cityparksalliance.org/webinars. If you're not a member but would like to attend, visit cityparksalliance.org/join. If you are a member, you'll also find our full webinar archive, so you can view all past webinar recordings. Access to all webinars and our full webinar archive is just a few of the many resources available to City Parks Alliance members. We also offer city workshops, a resource library full of examples of MOUs, agreements, and plans, a job bank, and discounts on our biennial Greater and Greener conference. Members are able to host park study tours and get early bird access to tours, which sell out quickly. Within the next week, you'll receive an email with a download link for a copy of today's presentation and a link to become a member. Among the many reasons to be a City Parks Alliance member is the opportunity to attend its conferences, such as the next one coming up this summer, July 20th to 24th in Denver, Colorado. You can access the full schedule of exciting educational sessions, mobile workshops, and weekend tours at www.greatergreener.org. Thank you for attending.